What up, perps? Kid Copious back in effect. Purple State Party, you know what we're doing here. We're repping America, the center, and common sense. I love you. It's hard for me to do that. I got battered hands. If you got battered hands, well, then this one's for you. So a little behind the scenes here. This is my second take. I had to redo the whole thing. My audio levels were screwed up. I unplugged my microphone, and I never really set everything up again. I didn't realize things had gone to default. I had accidentally hit the gain. You know, it just shows you that preparation is the key to success. Yeah, that's my words of advice for today. Let's start this off with something funny from the B here. Study finds 100% of men fantasize about launching car off of every auto transport trailer they see. Isn't that the truth? You ever play Grand Theft Auto? I love just launching cars. You know, it's like living vicariously. I get stuck in traffic a lot. Oh, man. All right. So we'll get serious now, all right? You know, the truth of the matter is without the Electoral College, Democrats would win every election, every presidential election at least, because, you know, New York and California would decide the election. Likewise, the Republicans would never win without the Electoral College. The fact of the matter is the Electoral College kind of balances out the views of the different states. One of the reasons, of course, that the Democrats would love to abolish it, is quite simple. They would win pretty much all the presidential elections. I don't know how the rest of the stuff would go without it, but, you know, I don't think that would be good. I don't think letting California and New York decide is the way to go. I mean, at one point, maybe, you know, when we really needed progressive ideas. Nowadays, I think we just need a twinge of progressive policies. Not so much the overwhelming, because we're seeing it in different cities, and we're seeing it in our own country right now that, you know, we're really focused on the wrong things. You know, social justice and righting wrongs is great, but if you're going to throw everything at it and then be left with nothing for the important things, then I think it's kind of stupid. Engineer admits Facebook automatically demotes anti-Kamala posts. You know, and this might not be an issue for you. Maybe you're pro-Kamala. You know, maybe you're just a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. You're a liberal, far lefty, whatever. The problem is censorship is censorship. You know, denying people their voice is denying people their voice, you know. You have to have pushback. You have to be able to have pushback. You know, that's one of the things that helped create this idea of purple. Now, I know there's been centralists forever. But what it used to be would be that you would have the center, and then you would have moderate Republicans and Democrats who are closer to the center. Right now, it seems like we're just operating on the extremes. And, you know, we need to be able to have a voice, you know. I'm not anti-Democrat. I don't hate Democrats. I just think Kamala is just not right for the job. It's not a good look. The optics are bad. I mean, and that just means that Trump's just slightly better. Very depressing right now. I really thought we were going to have somebody run up the middle. And the reason why that's important is that if a third party starts getting more and more percentages of the votes, then they'll be brought into the debates. And then when we have these two puppets over here yelling at each other, you know, somebody in the middle can say, hey, what about this? And that's what we need in this country. We need a little bit, hey, what about this? Yeah, so no more life on Mars as kidneys shown to be altered by space flight. And I just bring this up because, you know, it irritates me how a lot of people seem to think that space flight, aliens coming here, all that is just so easy. And of course the aliens have come. But you have to overcome certain things. The amount of radiation that you are exposed to when you're out in deep space is life-altering. And, you know, they found that with people who went to the moon, you know, people who have been up in space for a while. And, yeah. So, I guess we're not moving to Mars. So, you know, we better fix this fucking planet. You know, one of the things about being purple is that you have to be willing to listen to the other side. You have to be willing to actually change your position based on good information. And people of my generation and the generations around me, they always figured that your body dictated your sex and or gender, however we're supposed to say that. But my daughter taught me something. She's responsible for some of this artwork back here. She said that the brain controls gender identification. And I kind of scoffed. I was like, no, I mean, if you got a girl's body, no. She said to me, how do I work with bad knees and tired legs? And I said, well, I push through. She said, see, the brain is stronger than the body. I get that visibly displaying your gender is a bit of a choice. But, just like it's my choice to wear this. This is the character inside my head. This is the character that can come out and talk to people. So I bring it forth. And in this day and age right now, with a lot of controversy surrounding, trans athletes and gender-affirming care and all that, we need to keep in mind that not all trans people think the same. Much like we're finding that not all black people think the same, or all Hispanic people think the same, or all white people think the same, or all people from the continent of Asia think the same. Everybody has their own fucking brain. And when you're reading these stories about gender-affirming care and trans athletes, remember, a majority of trans people don't support either one of those things, especially for kids, and especially when it comes to college-level men competing on a women's team. I mean, they could simply be the only female on the men's team. But in this misogynistic society that we've crafted, colleges don't want to taint the men's team with controversy. So they force the women. They force the women to suffer. They don't ask their opinion. They don't take into account their feelings. No, they force them to accept this man onto the team. But this again, is not acceptable to most trans people. So don't equate this injustice by weak lefties to normal trans people who are just trying to live their best lives. That's the message that I really hope gets through. Yes, I am against biological males competing in women's sports, but I am not against trans people, and neither should you be. They're just people. They're just maybe different like I am. I'm different, but I don't have a classification. So, hey, rant and rave all you want in the comment section. Let me know what a jackass I am. But remember, I love you. As a white dude, which hopefully you can see. See, look at there, I'm white. As a white dude, it's kind of weird when I see how groups stick together. Myself, I'm adopted. I know that I'm half Italian, and that's about it. But I don't side with Italians. I don't vote for people who just simply have an Italian name, although, there's not a lot of that running around. Especially back in the day, people would change their names a little bit, so it didn't sound so Italian. But I never felt that. I don't automatically side with the white guy running because there's often multiple white guys running. So I can't really explain how that feels. Now, I know from a friend of mine who's black, he dresses and talks and acts in a way that is a positive to his community. He said he has to set an example. But when it comes to politics, this idea that somebody being black automatically gets the black vote, well, that's kind of archaic. It's not a very progressive way of thinking now, is it? So when Obama comes out and says, black man, get back on the plantation, he's got the whip of shame there. Him telling black people that they need to vote for Kamala because she's black, that's just ignorant. That's just ignorant. It really is. I can understand that with Obama because at least he was qualified. And there you're like, hey, let's, get this qualified black man into office. Great. He was qualified. He wasn't an incompetent boob like the one they got running right now. But this racial shaming, I don't know. I mean, I've felt it recently with all of this CRT crap But at the same time, like, I'm not that guy. I'm not that white guy. So I don't know. Kamala appeals to black voters by offering free pack of menthols and a copy of Medea's Family Reunion on DVD. That's really tiptoeing along the line there, B. But you know, this is a fair indictment of their philosophy that women will have to vote for a woman, black people will have to vote for Kamala. I suppose Indian, Asian, whatever else she is, will have to vote for her because of that. And they would love for people to believe that. But you have to, as Martin Luther King said, judge not by the color of my skin, but the content of my character. And for somebody like Kamala being judged on the content of her character, that ain't going to end well. Speaking of not ending well, Hamas leader Sinwar made a critical mistake moments before he was killed. Yeah. There he is. Missing a hand. He threw a stick at the drone that they flew in. I mean, essentially, Israel is clearing out the tunnels. So Sinwar went topside. He was in an apartment building. And some of his fellow fighters decided to pop some rounds off at a tank. And the tank just whirled around and boom. Then they set up a little drone. And they found him basically dying in an apartment building. Fitting end to a guy who helped mastermind, you know, one of the sickest days we've seen in quite a while, October 7th. You know, attacking young people who 1 minute are just enjoying a music festival and the next minute they're fleeing for their lives, losing their lives, watching friends and loved ones lose their lives. So I feel no sympathy for this guy. All right. You know, recently we sent our B-2, our stealth bomber, over to Yemen. Dropped some bombs over there. And I think we're heading to Iran. I really do. I think we'll probably lose some good men and women. But Iran has been a cancer on the face of this planet since the 70s. They are the major funder of terror around the world. They are fighting a proxy war. And it's time for us to bring it to their front door. Period. End of subject. Mic drop. So the Washington Post gives entire staff day off to mourn loss of Hamas leader. Yeah. It seems to me that people on the left do not like religious people. But they make an exception for Muslims, which is weird because the very reason that the left doesn't like, say, Christians or Catholics is the same exact reason that they should not like the Muslims. It's an intolerant religion. It doesn't treat women well. Doesn't treat people in the LGBT community well. So I don't know why they side with them so much. Other than my philosophy that the left sidles up to evil because they're afraid of it. And they want to get them on their side so they don't hurt them. I'm glad the guy's gone. So on Thursday, there was the Al Smith dinner. It's a Catholic charity. And presidential candidates often go there or always go there. It's been a while since one hasn't. And of course, Trump was his normal, WWE self. Sounding like Rowdy Piper, going on, personal profane attacks and pointed political jokes. But, I mean, that's who he is. He's the wrestling heel, took some shots at Biden and Harris, of course. But that's who he is. He's like Rowdy Piper. He is the bad guy you love. And that's what we got. We got a guy who'll stand up to a bullet and be defiant and not always saying the right things, but at least he's thinking along the right lines. At least that's the way I see it. Kamala, of course, phoned it in like much of her career. I mean, she fucked Willie Brown, and now she's trying to fuck the world. If If I could get a presidential nomination by fucking Willie Brown, I would have fucked Willie Brown. I mean, this guy was twice her age. And he was married. And they say, oh, he wasn't married, they were separated. But the truth of the matter is Kamala left him because he wouldn't leave his wife. But before she left, he helped her become DA. And why? Because a lot of his friends were in trouble. And he needed a friendly district attorney to mysteriously make the charges disappear. And that's exactly what happened. You know, fact check me on that if you want. Fact check me, please. This is important. People need to understand that's who Kamala Harris is. That's who she is. But yeah, she virtually attended the Catholic charity dinner. You know, apparently the last time that happened was when Walter Mondale skipped it about 40 years ago. And he ended up losing 49 states. Yeah. We could only hope that happens again. Brian Birch, of course, president of the Catholic Vote Organization, said Kamala Harris's snub of the Al Smith dinner is insulting, though unsurprising, considering her track record of hostility towards Catholics and people of faith, unless they're Muslim. That irritates the hell out of me. But, you know, she brought up Molly Shannon doing her Catholic schoolgirl, Mary Catherine Gallagher. I barely remember that. I mean, I was around for that back when Saturday Night Live didn't seem to be so one-sided. I don't know, man. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in quite a while. I see the clips like most people. Who watches that show? Yeah. All right. So the FBI's role in Hunter Biden laptop scandal is worse than you know. And, you know, as they say here, as Andrew McCarthy says here, Hunter Biden's infamous laptop from hell may be the most damning trove of evidence tying the sitting president to the over $27 million that his family raked in by peddling his political influence to agents of corrupt and anti-American regimes. Yeah. The FBI, you know, they took possession of it in December of 2019 and quickly authenticated it. It says there's plenty of evidence to corroborate, parabola? Whatever. To, you know, plenty of receipts. There you go. But then they quickly badmouthed the New York Post and said that it was more than likely the result of an influence operation carried out by the Russian intelligence. So they knew it was real. Then they claimed it was fake to better the president. To better Biden's chances. Yay, you got your guy in. So it doesn't really matter to the people on the left. Yeah, so what? The fact that they do this is a problem because you don't, right now you're on their side, so to speak. So they covered up a laptop that could have cost Biden the election. Biden wins the election. So yeah, you clap. But that's today. What about tomorrow? But they claim it was an operation carried out by Russian intelligence. In reality, it was an influence operation carried out by current and former U.S. intelligence officials. The FBI was not alone. They dragged all those people out. Oh yeah, it looks like a Russian plant to me. But everybody already knew. And if you haven't already voted, that's one of the things you got to look at. Look at the level of manipulation that went on with the laptop, and then think about how Kamala Harris got her name on signs, Harris Waltz. Think about how that all went down, because that did not go down the way they're saying it went down. It went down the way the plan dictated. Get Biden through the primaries so we can shovel Kamala in. I've been a recycle and reuse guy my entire life. I remember going golfing with my dad, going through trash bins, getting aluminum cans, going around to the neighbors, collecting papers. I've already said this. I've said this before. But that's who I am. I am a recycler, a reuser. I care about the environment. I pick up trash when I see it. But what I'm seeing right now is this absolutely cuckoo war on plastic. It's almost as stupid as the war on drugs. Actually, it's stupider because the war on drugs was at least trying to do something that might help a few people. But the way Gavin Newsom and Bonta are suing ExxonMobil for lying about the recyclability, they were toting it too. They had their own studies. Everybody knew it. The soda pop companies were perpetrated this idea that we were going to recycle our plastic, and we can. And ExxonMobil does. But at the same time, this demonization of plastic is ridiculous. Think about all the plastic around you right now. Could you imagine if you replace that with wood or metal? How heavy would that be? How expensive would that be? How much more fuel would it take to transport it? So I just wanted to look at this because I just want all sides being discussed. The myth of plastic recycling is finally unraveling. This comes from the Telegraph, UK. Plastics only constitute about 0.5% of the manufactured materials mankind uses. That's amazing when you think about all the plastic that is around us right now. That is not even 1%. Cement and steel have a far bigger carbon footprint. But instead, we're fetishizing plastics and not focusing on what could actually make a difference, says Dr. DeArmond. Okay? See, not focusing on what could actually make a difference. You know, another doctor was talking here. Dr. Bratley said his family eats a lot of crisps. Those are chips for you non-England people. So they tend to buy in bulk. The multi-packs used to come in a big plastic bag, but now they come in a big cardboard box. Guess which one has a bigger carbon footprint? Yeah, the cardboard box. This is that feel-good shit that just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not, switching to cardboard has a bigger carbon footprint. I like the cardboard because it fits in things better. I mean, it's probably better packaging overall. But if we're trying to reduce carbon footprints, then going to cardboard is not the idea. So this study here was done by the Imperial College in 2019. And it said that finding that replacing plastic on food packaging with alternatives such as cotton, glass, metal, or bioplastics would, on average, increase the weight of the packaging by 3.6 times, the energy used by 2.2 times, and carbon dioxide emissions by 2.7 times. So 2 times, 3 times as much going into the alternatives. Paper bags are heavier than plastic bags and so require more fuel to transport. Glass bottles are much heavier than plastic bottles, so again, more fuel, but they also take more energy to make in the first place. There you go. What do you want? It's easier to stock up on plastic bags. The real answer, to be honest with you, I think, is to go back to those old cheap bags. You know, those bags that usually made it home and then you could use them one more time for some dog poop and then throw them away. What we had was the best solution out there. But instead of going back to what worked, we're going to go forward to what doesn't work. I'm old enough to remember when they were trying to say that plastic bags were better for the environment than paper bags. And now we want to go back to paper bags. It's ridiculous. The thin plastic bags that we used to have, that was the solution. Okay? What's more, plastic tends to do a better job. The difficult to remove polyethylene shrink wrap around a cucumber ensures that it lasts 3 times longer than if exposed to air. Ban it, and all things being equal, you'd have to grow 3 times as many cucumbers and transport them. And for the UK, that's coming from Spain, Netherlands, Morocco, and Greece. So again, transportation, that's a big carbon footprint. So if we're going to clean things up, let's do what keeps the cucumbers fresher longer. Let's not do what feels good but makes the problem worse, because remember, here in California, we already tried that. We already banned the thin bags. Then they came out with the thick bags, which were even worse for the environment. And then they said, all right, we're going back to paper, instead of going back to the plastic that worked and was easy to manufacture and was cheaper to transport. So if you look at the benefits derived from only 3 applications of plastic, making cars lighter, providing cheap insulation for homes, and reducing food waste. All the polymers produced by mankind have a net positive impact on the environment. Yes, plastic are made from fossil fuels, and yes, that means they have a carbon footprint. But if you only look at the deficit side of the equation, you're being dishonest. If you have 3 negatives but 12 positives, guess what? You're positive 9. Like Darmit says here, biggest steps individuals can do to combat climate change: drive less, fly less, and eat less meat. But people don't want to do those things, so they walk around carrying an organic cotton tote instead. It's virtual signaling, and it won't help save the planet. All right, this next one, it's all messed up. I think there's a typo in here, and man, did I really screw the pooch on this one on my first recording. Science says that we can be for the environment or for plastic, but not both at the same time. That's, I don't know. That's kind of like that old thing about religion versus science. I mean, religion versus science. And one day I just figured it out. I was probably high, ditching school or something, and I thought, man, wait a minute. What if science just proves God's mechanizations? What if the best way to help our environment is plastics? So, during the debates and, leading up to the election, we're hearing a lot about how crime is down and jobs are being created. But this one article right here kind of blows that out of the water, and it exposes how they're doing this. FBI quietly revised violent crime data, now showing a surge instead of a reported decrease. Keep in mind this, because at the end here we're going to talk about exaggeration and downplaying. But the crime stats for 2022 showed that violent crime actually increased. Oops, we meant to say up, explains FBI after months of saying crime is down. The same FBI that verified and then lied about the Hunter Biden laptop. So originally it showed a 2.1% decrease, okay? But real briefly on their website, they mentioned, well, that's kind of been moved up to 4.5. So with a little math, that's something like, 6.6% swing? That is, that's kind of considerable. That's a pretty big oops. I mean, just going from a negative to a positive is pretty much an oops. But it allowed certain politicians to say, hey, crime's down. People in California on the national stage, oh, crime's down. And then the fact checkers go, well, according to the FBI, it is. Well, are they reporting this, that it's actually up almost 5%? Huh. I bet you they're not. And this guy, Carl Moody, right here, he's a professor at the College of William and Mary. He specializes in crime. There were no revisions from 2004 to 2015. And from 2016 to 2020, there were small changes of less than 1 percentage point. So here we have 6.6. He's saying up until 2020, less than 1% point change. The huge changes in 21 and 22, especially without explanation, make it difficult to trust the FBI data. Of course. How can you trust people who verify a laptop, then say it's false? Who release crime stats that aren't even correct? How is this oversight? Are they going to try to correct this? Because when you're in the middle of a debate, okay, and you say crime is down and the FBI backs you up, but in reality crime is up, that's election manipulation. The post-release change is similar to the revisions the Bureau of Labor Statistics did, which overestimated the amount of jobs in America in 2023 by an average of 105,000 a month. So what? That's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1.2, 1.3 million jobs that they overestimated by. So Kamala could say, oh, our administration added all these jobs. And how many of those jobs, by the way, as we saw once before on this show, they were all government jobs. So it's all taxpayer funded, which means it's full of waste and fraud. With the media using the 2022 FBI data to tell us for a year that crime was falling. It's disappointing that there's no news articles correcting this misimpression, Moody told RCI. We will have to see whether the FBI later revises the 2023 numbers. They had to go back 2 years and revise numbers? Hey, look, they're working for you. If they're working for your side right now, keep in mind, it might not always be your side. I think what's really concerning about what we were talking about with the FBI and how they manipulate the elections, manipulate public impressions of people, is that they are supporting the side that has created the mess that's in Union Square right now. You know, Gavin Newsom locked it down and it started to suffer. But right now, there's a Starbucks there where you open up the door and it's just a counter right there, boom, right at the door. No place to sit down, no public restrooms because the junkies and the crazy people have ruined that for everybody. And everything at the Starbucks is done in the back for safety. To go to like Yves Saint Laurent, you have to make an appointment. You could try your luck with the security guard out front. He'll look you over and maybe let you in. I don't think he's going to let me in. But it is easier to buy meth in San Francisco than to buy a damn Louis Vuitton handbag. And the reason I bring this up is because I heard a report about Mavericks. They're kind of like the AM, PM gas stations. Utah, Idaho, I'm sure there are Texas, places like that. I think there might even be some out here in California. But they were voted the best public restrooms. And I really started thinking about that because I spent a lot of time out and about in the city, driving from point A to point B, all the way up to G some days. And yeah, it is difficult to find an actual bathroom that they will let you use it. A lot of AMPMs, they just kind of say they're out of order, blah, 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 blah. Because we have allowed politicians to take away tax-paying working citizens' rights to have certain conveniences in life and turn them over to drug addicts and junkies and prostitutes who use, I mean, imagine if you are working like the late night at a gas station. Maybe you're making minimum wage, right? Just trying to get yourself through college, upwards and onwards. And you got to go clean up some of these bathrooms. You got to deal with a guy who shot up and passed out in the bathroom. Some crazy person having an episode talking to a toilet full of puke. I mean, people don't need... and that's what it's like up in San Francisco. Their policies have literally just ruined everything and make everything. Forget about it, whether you get robbed and stuff like that. Having to look down to make sure you're not stepping in poo on the sidewalks. Jumping every time some crazy person just yells something. Guy's in an argument with a pigeon. You got to walk all the way around that. Who are they building the society for? Well, here in California, we have that answer. They want it for the elites and the people who clean their toilets. That's what they want. They'll just shovel all the homeless people into one little area, and then they'll go to Disneyland and get to enjoy their day without a bunch of peasants interacting with them. But on the flip side, there's people in San Francisco who are no longer buying that. And I see that myself. It'd be hard to side with the Democrats on some of these issues right now. Tech titans pour millions into San Francisco mayor's race, hoping to set city on new course. Look how deep the rock bottom is, you know? So this is a guy, Acosta. He runs a $30 million fund that invests in early-stage artificial intelligence companies. As a kid, he invested in Pogs. But he said the city by the bay is the center of the universe. It's where you see the future unfold, sometimes a decade before anyone else sees it. But that bliss only applies to his work. Actually, living in San Francisco, he says, doesn't always feel so magical. He's grown disillusioned with the property crimes and the ways in which the twin crisis of addiction and homelessness spill out onto the streets. His office was broken into and robbed of laptops. And at one time, a homeless man wandered into the building in the midst of a manic episode. Both times the police offered little help. This should be our top priority. Okay? This is what we should be trying to fix. This and water supply. Nobody needs to go to work and have a homeless guy just wander in, screaming and yelling and God knows what else. I've been there. I see that more times than I need to. So I know how that feels. I know how I would feel if I was the, young female receptionist and some dude just wanders in like that. And what do we do about it? Nothing. So they're going for this guy, Daniel Laurie. He's the heir to the Levi fortune. And he runs a nonprofit. And they label him a centralist. And I kind of hope that he gets into office and that his ideas work so that then San Francisco can maybe be the beacon of centralist ways of thinking. Dropping these stupid single issues that we have and coalescing into something that understands that we have to move forward with a more of a middle road way of thinking. The extremes are not working. That has been proven. Look at what Texas did with abortion. And look at what San Francisco did with progressive ideas. Portland, Seattle. We see what's happening. It's very easy to see what's happening in Denver. Progressive ideas, well, they just don't work. So earlier, I mentioned downplaying versus exaggeration. And this is the one that really got me thinking about it. The acceptable number of apartment complexes taken over by illegal alien Venezuelan gangs. A handful, B, 3, C, a bushel, or D, 0. And of course, what's her face up there? I've already forgotten her name. Has picked A handful. And then you got Mayorkas here. We have not intentionally allowed millions of illegals to cross the border to vote, says Mayorkas, waving his hand, attempting a Jedi mind trick. These two really got me thinking about exaggeration versus downplaying. Because Trump tends to exaggerate, Vance tends to exaggerate, and then Kamala and Waltz and all of the Democrats tend to downplay. They downplay crime. They downplay the problem of homelessness. They downplay the fact that women's rights are being eroded right in front of our face. They downplay all these things. And I love a good metaphor, simile, whatever the hell it is. No, don't worry about these things. I'm not really good with terms. But I wanted a good one. And I thought, okay, so let's say that you live in California and you're going to drive across country for a family wedding. So you stop and you pick up your brother. And he listens to your car and he goes, man, that sounds like it's going to explode. We got to get this to a mechanic immediately. And so you drive, or you don't even drive. You get a tow truck and you have it towed down to the mechanic, and the mechanic says, oh yeah, it's just a belt. It probably would have lasted you another 1,000 miles, but you know what? Let me just change that out. And I also noticed you're low on, coolant. So let's get that topped off, and you might as well do an oil change since you're here. Rotate your tires, all that, blah, 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 blah. You're like, okay, all right, so that's going to take some time off the trip, but at least we're not going to break down in the middle of America. So even though your brother exaggerated, there was a problem, and it was attended to because of the exaggeration. Now imagine if you pulled up, same sound coming out of your engine, and your brother says, it'll be fine. I've heard that before. You got nothing to worry about. It'll work itself out. Then somewhere in the middle of Nebraska, middle of the top of Texas, boom, your engine blows because you were out of coolant. because that belt did snap. Now you're stuck in an area you don't know in the middle of the night because somebody downplayed it. Now I know that's not across the board going to make sense, but it's something to think about. Would you rather we exaggerate the problem and do something about it, or downplay it and let it fester? That's what it comes down to. That's the way I see it. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party. And so are you. Love one another. Vote with your head, not your heart. You know, emotions are not going to fix this country, man. Hard work is going to do it. And to all the hard workers out there, I salute you. And this dance is for you.